Hey everybody, welcome back to Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. I'm Dan.
And I'm Tom.
And Tom, I already know I'm going to like this one because you picked a movie with guns, spies, and a French accent. Well, maybe I'll like it. Let's see.
You know me too well, Dan. Today we're going to talk about La Femme Nikita from 1990, directed by Luc Besson. And before we start, let's talk about the title for a second, because half the people listening are going to say it different ways.
Right. So in France, it's just called Nikita. That's pretty easy. When it came to the United States, though, they added La Femme in front of it, which just means the woman in French.
So it's really like the title in the U.S. is The Woman Nikita. I mean, kind of a bizarre way to put a title.
Yeah, it's a different kind of title, but it's stuck. All right, so let's set the stage. This is a French movie in French with subtitles for most of us in the U.S., and it came out in February of 1990 in Paris.
And Dan, I know that you don't like reading your movies and aren't a fan of watching movies with subtitles.
Yeah.
But I think fans of this type of movie just need to get beyond it for this one. This movie basically started the whole cool female assassin trend that we still see today.
So, yeah, exactly. Before Atomic Blonde, before Kill Bill, before Alias on TV, there was Nikita. It's kind of the grandmother of the whole genre.
Yeah, the grandmother of the genre. I like that. She'd probably shoot you for saying that, though.
Yeah, fair point. Okay. Real quick, though, before we dive in, let's talk basics. This came out in 1990. It runs just under 2 hours, and it's rated R here in the United States, mostly for violence and some language.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of violence and a lot of language in this movie. We should put that up front. And it's in French, so the folks watching in English will be reading subtitles the whole time.
Yeah, right. Unless you track down a dubbed version, which I couldn't do, so I had to read the subtitles. But I have to say, there's not that much dialogue in this movie.
So like I said, there's a lot of violence.
Much to read. It wasn't all that much to read. So I didn't care all that much. So they were short sentences. They weren't like rambling on. So yeah, it was okay. All right, okay, let's get into it. First up, what is this movie actually about?
Okay, well, is it a spy movie?
Yeah, is La Femme Nikita a spy movie? I'm going to say not exactly. No. Nikita is a government assassin, we think. A big difference between her and somebody like James Bond is that she's hired to kill. James Bond can kill, but isn't required to. You know, he has that license thing. But we've had some fan requests to do this movie, and so, okay, it's close enough to a spy movie that we decided to decode it.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a really broad question. Don't talk for 3 hours. What happens in La Femme Nikita?
I could tell you. So we open on a rough scene. It's nighttime in Paris, and we've got a small group of drug addicts, it looks like, breaking into a pharmacy to steal drugs. One of them is a teenage girl named Nikita, played by Anne Perriot. These guys, which, you know, you're not paying attention, they're dragging a body.
Yeah, this isn't a really good start for our main character.
No, not at all. The police show up, there's a shootout, and in the chaos, Nikita shoots and kills a police officer, point blank, right in the face. It's a hard scene to watch, and there's a lot of gore right up front in this movie.
Yeah. When this movie opens, you know it's not going to be watching Bambi.
No, you're not watching Bambi. You're not watching any of this stuff, any Disney thing, that's for sure. It's not even close.
We know right away this character's not a typical hero, and this movie definitely earns its R rating.
Yeah, she's not a hero. I don't even think she's an anti-hero. She's not hero-like at all, in my opinion. In fact, you kind of hope she gets killed. I would.
Wow.
Yeah. Don't trust her with a pencil either, by the way, folks. She's arrested, and because she killed a cop, she's put on trial and given a life sentence. But then something strange happens. She's given a shot that knocks her out. And when she wakes up, she's told that she actually died and that her death was faked. Well, okay. What a start.
Wait, so the government's going to just pretend she's dead?
Yeah, right. Yeah. A secret government agency fakes her execution so that on paper, Nikita no longer exists. A man named Bob, played by Checky Cario, tells her that she has two choices. She can either die for real right now, or she can work for the government as a trained killer.
Yeah, okay. How'd you like to get that question? It's kind of a job interview, right? And it's kind of like, oh, you take the job, you're hired. If you don't take it, you're dead.
I tell you, it's
Wow.
much tougher than interviews at Microsoft we had. I tell you.
Yeah, really.
All right, now, yeah. So she agrees. Obviously, she agrees.
Wouldn't have much of a
obviously,
movie if she said no.
for the second options. The next part of the movie is her training. Now, she learns how to fight, how to use weapons, how to blend in. There's even a character named Amand, played by Jean Moreau, who teaches her how to be graceful and feminine so she can use that to her advantage. Now, when you see the beginning of this movie, she's anything but graceful or feminine. She is rough, beat up, hung up wet. She's rough. Now,
Yes, she is.
for me at this point in the movie, hey, she killed or helped kill innocent people. I was okay with her life in prison sentence or her dying.
Yeah, you said you wanted her dead.
Yeah, using her for a trained killer for the government. I mean, can't you find any other more respectable people than this? I mean, Bond comes to mind. The Deuxième Bureau, I'm sure in France, I'm sure they have better people than this. But, oh, man. Can she be trusted at all? Nah. And should she be? If you are supposed to become attached to a character in a movie and be on their side in a movie, this is a tough start.
It is.
I'm not on her side.
And it's kind of like there's two schools happening at once. One's teaching her how to kill people, and one teaches her how to walk into a room and not look like someone who kills people. If we think about the movie Razzie, right? She has to get educated in how to do the spy thing. There can be some death in that, but a very different feel.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. But and you got to remember, okay, this is 1990, 1991. It came out in 91 in the U.S. So she even learns how to use a computer with a mouse, Tom. So
Remember those days, Dan?
yeah, and she seems to take to a gun rather easily. She destroys a paper target on her first go, and the trainer says, "Okay, there's some good dialogue in here, even though it's in French. You got to read it." The trainer says, "Have you used one of these before?" And she says, "Not on paper."
I guess she wasn't shooting paper targets, huh?
No. So after 3 years of training, they decide she's ready. Her first mission is at a fancy restaurant, and it's actually one of the most famous scenes in the movie. She has to complete the job in the middle of a birthday dinner, and things kind of go sideways fast.
Yeah, this is one of those scenes that you hear about a lot when you hear about this movie. I mean, this thing is very intense.
Yeah. There's good reasons you hear a lot about it. It really is one of the highlights of the movie in terms of scenes.
Well, it also starts, there's a theme throughout this movie about brick walls. And this scene gives us our first taste of that.
Yeah. After that, the movie shifts gears a little bit. Nikita is allowed to live a semi-normal life between missions. I'm going to say that like that because there's nothing normal about any of her stuff, really. I mean, she lives a wacky life. She meets a grocery store worker named Marco, played by Jean-Hughes Anglade, and they fall in love. He has no idea what she really does for a living, and quite honestly, neither do we.
No, we know what she's been trained to do.
You know who? Yeah,
And
I
she
have
does
issues
hide.
with this.
She does hide it very well.
Yeah.
You got this secret assassin girlfriend that you don't know is an assassin. I mean, what could possibly go wrong here, Dan?
Yeah, right. And that's the real heart of the movie. She's trying to hold on to a normal life, even though she never had one before in the beginning, and a real relationship, which she never had before, apparently. So while also being pulled back in for more and more dangerous jobs. Now,
Oh, and I love how they do that because she just gets a phone call and they had a code name for her. They say her code name. She knows that she's going to get a mission. And just the look on her face is kind of like, oh, crap, I got to do another one of these.
Yeah, now I'd like to be on the receiving end of that. Every time the phone rang, you'd be like, oh, no, man, I hope it's not for me, Josephine.
Yeah, really.
Like that. So there's a huge mission at an embassy that goes wrong, too. A lot of things go wrong in these missions. And a cleanup specialist named Victor, played by
Oh,
Jean Reno.
yeah.
He gets called in to handle the mess in a pretty brutal way.
Oh,
This is, yeah.
yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
love Jean Reno. I mean, he's mainly got one big scene. It's a longer scene, but he is just so good in it, and just like steals this scene with the way he performs this cleaner role.
Yeah, yeah, it's a smaller role, but it's an unforgettable role. And honestly, it's kind of a warm up for his much bigger role a few years later in Leon, the Professional, where he plays a full time cleaner slash hitman. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit more about him a little bit later when we get into the characters. So there are a couple more details worth mentioning. Once she starts her double life, the agency gives her a new identity for normal life, and they call her Marie Clement.
Yeah.
So Marco, her boyfriend, doesn't even know that her name is Nikita, doesn't know she's got this code name of Josephine. He knows her as Marie. And that's a
Yeah.
lot to hide from someone you love. It's a whole different name.
Yeah, right. And then there's this thing where the agency reaches her through a payphone. They call at a set time, say a code word, and she has to drop whatever she's doing, even in the middle of dinner with Marco, and go do the job. So anytime that phone rings and it's for Josephine, which was her code name here, she's got to go. Doesn't matter
Yeah,
what she's doing.
yeah, and they transition to not being just the payphone. I
All
mean, she
right,
gets a
guys.
call in a hotel room,
Yeah,
right?
anywhere.
I mean, it's like you're on call for a job that you can never talk about, and you, like you say, you dread getting that phone call.
Yeah, exactly. And that tension builds throughout the whole back half of the movie. Every time that phone rings, I mean, you feel it in your stomach because you know it means that she has to lie to Marco once again. Whoa.
Well, yeah, and she knows what she's going to have to do. And I think it's actually a really smart way to keep the tension going in this without needing a shootout every 10 minutes. Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
lot of shootouts, but this helps build some tension when
Yeah,
there are
there's,
bullets flying.
there's a lot of tension. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, so let's not get into more of the plot. That's enough of that. So let's talk about
yeah.
how it was received. How did people react to this? This is a pretty violent movie. Was this thing a hit?
In France, yeah, it was a big hit. It came out in February 1990 and became the second highest grossing movie in France that whole year. Millions of people went to see it. You know, I can see why. I mean, it dominates the screen, and you're going to talk about this movie if you see it.
Yes. Yeah.
It was a unique movie at the time.
Oh, I agree. And, second highest gross of the year is nothing to laugh at.
Right, yeah. But here's the funny part. Even though audiences loved it, French critics were a lot cooler on it. And I don't mean cooler like, hey, that's a pretty cool movie. Like, they chill on this movie that was like, nah, it wasn't all that good. Some felt it was more style than substance. Kind of flashy, but a little shallow. But hey, can a million Frenchmen or women be wrong? I may have to look up those French critics, though, because I do have some issues that I may agree with.
Yeah.
I may agree.
Well, this is a classic case of critics and regular people not agreeing.
Yeah, okay.
Go to Rotten Tomatoes and you'll usually see a huge gap between critics and the audience. But for La Femme Nikita, there's only a 5% difference. And it gets a 7.2 out of 10 on IMDb. So this is pretty high. So I think those critics' ratings were the initial ratings that came out that you were talking about. I think it grew over time. Because this did set the stage for all of these female assassin movies that followed.
Yeah. When it came out in the United States in 1991, though, the reaction was mixed as well, but leaned more positive from the American critics. Roger Ebert, who was one of the most famous movie critics ever, he gave it 3.5 stars out of 4. Now, I usually sided more with Siskel and than Ebert in their show. They had a show about all reviewing movies and critiquing movies. But Ebert, pretty fair here, though. Maybe a half star too many, I think.
Well, that is a strong score from Ebert, and I think it's actually the type of movie he liked.
Yeah. He called it a smart, hard-edged, almost romantic. I love that part. Almost romantic thriller. And he
Almost.
and said it was surprisingly touching once you get past the violence. Now, I don't know how he ever got past the violence, but okay.
It pretty much goes throughout.
He really connected with Nikita's transformation from this out of control addict into someone who's actually trying to find her humanity again. And maybe at the time that was a different twist. To me, it was obvious she would try to do that once she was given a chance to live again.
Yeah, but you don't see that much in movies the way they did it here. And so Ebert liking the emotional side of it more than just the action, I can totally see. Because again, it was unique.
It was unique. Yeah, exactly. On the flip side, though, Janet Maslin at the New York Times had a more mixed take. She liked a lot of it, but felt the movie got more ordinary as it went along. Like it started out wild and unique and slowly became a more standard thriller. Okay, I can see her point.
Yeah, but every movie's got that one critic who's just not fully sold.
Yeah,
and we'll tell you where we stand on this movie at the end. But the thing about this is the character starts out so wild. And as they, and I'm going to put in quotes, normalize her a bit, right?
Yeah, that's got to be cool.
The movie's got to transform with her. So I'm not sure that I agree with what Maslin says here, because it kind of has to do that because she starts out so crazy.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. But, some other reviewers straight up did not like it at all, calling it silly or over the top. But as you mentioned, on the review site, Rotten Tomatoes, it actually holds a really strong score today. 7.2, like you said, Tom, which, is pretty good. And meaning most critics looking back consider it a good movie.
Yeah, so it's kind of like On Her Majesty's Secret Service. I mean, that movie got panned by the critics initially.
Yeah, they were.
And with time, people's memory of it, the memory and the criticism softened because they realized what a strong movie it was. They just had a hard time with the character.
Yeah, maybe that's a good way to look at it. But and on the award side, Anne Perelot won the César Award, which is basically the French version of the Oscar for Best Actress. She was convincing in the role, I have to say. The movie,
yes, she was.
The movie also picked up multiple César nominations, and it was even nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Foreign Language Movie. So, okay, it got some accolades.
Yeah, so with the mixed reviews, it walked away with some real hardware. And the way that Perelot played this role, you really don't like this character. Like you said, you wish they would have killed her early on.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. I still do. All right, and honestly, the biggest sign of how well it was received might not be the awards. It's that Hollywood liked it enough to remake it a couple years later, and it got turned into a whole TV series after that. So that kind of staying power says a lot.
Well, and not to mention all the movies that kind of copied this idea.
Oh, yeah.
So
later, sure.
So we mentioned two critics here. Was everybody as into it as Ebert?
No, not everybody. Peter Travers over at Rolling Stone had a fun review where he said very little in the movie actually makes logical sense. Okay. I'm like, okay, I see that. And he said, but that it's all so gripping anyway because of Anne Perelot's performance. He called her a spellbinder. Well, it's hard not to pay attention to her in this movie.
Well, that's true. I mean, it's a pretty good way to sum up a lot of action movies, though. Logic aside, though, La Femme Nikita, to me, if you can deal with the violence, is fun to watch.
Almost every positive review from that time period leads with how good she is in the role. Okay, that's hard to argue. And on the flip side, some of the criticism was about the film feeling a little glossy or style over substance. A couple of reviewers use words like shallow or glitzy. So, okay. So you get mixed reviews. You can expect that for virtually every movie. Even Bond movies get mixed reviews. So there you go.
So this is a movie that people either bought in completely, and if you can't buy into that premise, you're going to feel it's all shine with no depth.
Yeah, okay. That's a fair summary. And looking back now, decades later, most modern reviewers and movie fans tend to land on the positive side. It's often talked about as an underrated classic or an important stepping stone for action movies. I'm agreeing with the stepping stone part for sure. Whether it's classic.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny how that happens sometimes. A movie gets a so-so or mixed reaction, and then years later people go back and realize how really ahead of its time this thing was.
Yeah, I mean, it happens a lot with movies that try something new. All right, before we move on, I want to give a few shout outs to listeners who have recently given us feedback on our podcast. On our very recent episode, The Genius of Ken Adam with Sir Christopher Frayling, Pietro Rossi said, another fascinating podcast, good interview. And Randy Hankins said about the same podcast, excellent episode. Ken Adam was the best in the business. And on our Silencers episode that we just released, Jim Phelps said, good class today, fellas. Thank you. Never miss a Tuesday. Thank you very much, Jim. Appreciate it. And Randy Hankins again said on the Silencers, good review. Yes, I vote for more reviews of the rest of the Dino Helm series. So thanks to all. We love hearing from you so that we can create even better episodes that you'll like even more. Thank you.
Yeah.
Keep it going.
Thank you so much for that feedback.
All right, let's get on to the cast and crew.
Okay, so who do we need to know?
Top of the list is Luc Besson, the writer and director. At the time, he was still pretty early in his career, but he'd already made movies like Subway and The Big Blue before this one.
And this is the same guy who later did Leon the Professional and The Fifth Element, right?
Yeah, right. That's him. Now, Nikita was kind of the movie that put him on the map internationally and showed off the visual style that he became known for. Lots of blue and green lighting, tight framing, and stories about lonely characters trying to find some kind of connection in life.
All right, so this is basically his finding his voice as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
And I can't remember who said this, but he was once called the most Hollywood of all French filmmakers. And Scott Tobias has one quote I really like about Besson's work. He says, quote, each new project probably starts with whiteout on the title page, end of quote. So I think he's thinking there's a lot of, scrub, rinse, and repeat. Now, if you don't know his movies, you still may have heard of Besson, because he actually was charged with some pretty nasty stuff in the early 2020s, but he was cleared of all of the allegations in 2023. But he did take a reputational hit for a while.
Yeah, pretty much. Now, the star of the show, of course, is Anne Perriot as Nikita, and this is a career-defining performance for her. Besson actually wrote the part specifically for her. They were a couple at the time.
Yeah, okay, so this is kind of sweet, actually. You write a whole movie for your girlfriend or wife or whatever it was. In this instance, it worked. But what are you telling her?
Yeah.
Right? I'm writing this character who's just totally nuts at the beginning of this movie.
Yeah.
Kind of stays nuts, trying to not be nuts.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good part for you, dear.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of works. And what's impressive, though, I think, is how much range she shows in this movie. At the start of the movie, she's this jittery, dangerous, strung-out teenager, practically feral. By the end, she's controlled, elegant, and dangerous in a totally different way. Watch how differently she moves in the pharmacy robbery scene compared to the restaurant mission later. It's like two different people. So she shows a good range.
Oh, yeah, she does. And, she, like the character, grows with the role. So that kind of works.
Yeah. Next, we've got Checky Carriot. Carriot plays Bob, Nikita's handler. He plays that role with this weird mix of coldness and something almost like caring. like a strict father figure, maybe, who genuinely wants her to succeed, even though his job is basically to turn her into a weapon. So,
oh, yeah, and that's a hard needle to thread as an actor, being scary and sympathetic at the same time. I think he pulls it off well. There's actually at one point where she does something and he gets a smirk on his face. He's not part of it. It's her interacting with somebody else. He's watching and he gets this smirk on his face. And I just totally love that because it said a lot about this character with no words.
Yeah, that little smirk said, hey, I'm succeeding. I'm turning her into what she's supposed to be. Yeah.
Yep.
One little smirk, no words. Yeah. Then there's Jean-Hugues Anglade as Marco, Nikita's boyfriend, who has no clue about her secret life. He plays it soft and a little goofy in a good way, though, I think, which makes him the one normal, gentle thing in Nikita's whole crazy world. And to me, he had a good part in this movie, I thought, and he did a great job in that role. And to me, he was my favorite character, really. I mean, he played it so well that you just believed him.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, even think about like True Lies. You got the same type of thing here. Gender's reversed, but same type of thing. Because he's kind of the audience's window into a normal life. Because
Yeah.
everything in this movie is so intense, you need to have a character like Marco to ground the movie a bit.
Yeah. And we can skip Jean Moreau as Armand, the woman who teaches Nikita how to be graceful and feminine.
Oh, yeah.
Moreau was already a legend of French cinema at this point. She'd been a huge star since the 1950s and 60s in classic movies like Jules and Jim and others. Her scenes with Perriot have this really interesting kind of mother-daughter kind of energy to it.
Oh, and it's great. I wish there was more of that interaction because they
Yeah, it was
both
good.
played off each other really well. And I love this character. And this relationship she's got here, I think, is what they based the relationship between Charlotte Rampling and Jennifer Lawrence, their characters in Red Sparrow.
Okay,
At a high
yeah.
level, the function of
Okay.
the teachers was similar, but it was handled differently. And you kind of liked the person who's teaching this person how to be more human.
Yeah,
And we already mentioned Jean Reno,
yeah.
and that scene that everybody talks about. Just love the way he does this as Victor.
Yeah, Jean Reno is Victor the Cleaner. I mean, he's barely in the movie. Maybe he's 10 minutes of the screen time total, but he steals every second of it. He plays this guy who shows up after a mission goes wrong and calmly, almost cheerfully, cleans up a scene of total chaos. It's dark. It's
Well,
dark.
he makes it a little more chaotic while he's doing it.
Yeah, it's dark. They try to make it a little funny, but I'm not laughing at any of this part. And it's unforgettable, really. It's
Yeah, it's kind of like the humor in it is kind of like, oh, they didn't really just do that, did they?
yeah.
It really became kind of the blueprint for his character in Leon a few years later. Also, we saw him in Mission Impossible in a similar kind of role. And I couldn't find anything definitive on this, but this role sure feels, at least at a high level, like the character of Winston Wolfe in Tarantino's Pulp Fiction.
Well, maybe. Yeah. All right. So Besson clearly liked what Renault did here, so much that he built an entire movie around a similar character type, Leon, professional. Let's talk about the people behind the camera for a second, because they matter just as much. Terry Arbogast was the cinematographer, meaning he's in charge of how the movie looks, the lighting, the camera work, all that kind of stuff.
For me, the lighting in this thing really kind of became a character of its own.
Yeah, really. Lots of harsh blues and greens in the government facility versus warmer, softer light in Nikita's apartment with Marco. And that contrast helps you feel the difference between her two lives without anyone having to say a dang word about it. You feel it. Arbogast went on to shoot a bunch of other Besson movies too, including Leon and The Fifth Element. So,
Okay, so we like the lighting. We like the cinematography here. What about the music? Because to me, that score is really moody.
that's Eric Serra, who did the music for almost all of Besson's early movies. His score here mixes a kind of electronic synth sounds with more classical emotional string sections and things like that, which fits the movie perfectly since Nikita herself is this split between something cold and mechanical and something trying to be human. So
Yeah,
the music kind of matches that, which is good.
yeah, I think it's a good fit. And
Yeah.
James Bond fans will know Sarah's work because he was the composer on GoldenEye. So basically, everybody
Yeah.
involved in this movie went on to keep working with Besson for years. So that says something about how he treated his crew.
Yeah. This movie was kind of the start of Besson's whole creative team, the people he trusted and kept coming back to for the next decade of his career. So, yeah, it's like that when you get a bunch of people you like.
Okay, who do we miss? Who else should we mention before we move on?
Well, Marc Doré, who plays Rico, one of Nikita's fellow trainees and later a co-worker on missions, and he adds a nice bit of danger and certainly unpredictability whenever he's on screen.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And
That's
Jean Bouis, he plays an embassy attaché involved in one of the bigger, messier missions later in the movie. See, you got a lot of messy missions here. All
Yeah, and this was unfortunately his last movie.
right. It's worth noting that Besson and Perriot had a daughter together and were married not long after this movie came out. though they eventually divorced years later. Besson has talked in interviews about writing the role specifically against her real personality, since he said she was actually pretty shy in real life. Man, you would not get that from this movie. And and he wanted to push her into something totally different on screen. Well, he succeeded doing that.
Yeah, okay, so, we said earlier, you're casting the person you love, saying I wrote this for you as a government assassin. How do you start this dinner conversation? Honey, I've got an idea for a movie. I've written a part that'd be perfect for you. It's the opposite of you, right?
Yeah,
You're going to be an assassin.
Yeah, right. And Perriot reportedly went through almost a year of training before filming even started. Learning judo, target shooting, and even taking voice lessons to lower and roughen her voice for the role. That's pretty wild.
That is a serious commitment, and
Yeah.
you see more and more of that these days with the action movies. They have to start out really early trying to learn how to do some of this stuff. So here, she learned a lot of what she needed to do before the camera started filming.
Yeah, and it really shows on the screen, too. And one last crew shout-out, I think. The movie's editor was Olivier Maffroy, who helped keep that tricky balance between fast, chaotic action scenes and the slower, quieter character moments. So cutting between those two moods without it feeling jarring, that's a real skill. So that was good.
And done very well, because like you say, that's not easy to do.
Yeah.
It's so easy to forget how much editing shapes whether an action scene lands or it just feels like noise. So I think Malfoy does a good job here in giving us that balance.
Yeah, I mean, a messy edit can ruin a great stunt, and a great edit can make an okay stunt feel incredible. So this movie leans on the second one of those a lot, letting shots breathe instead of cutting every half second the way a lot of modern action movies do. So it was really well edited. I thought.
Well, this was before The Bourne Identity, so you get a different style.
Yeah.
And I think for me, this is part of why the fighting scenes still hold up. You can actually see what's happening. They did have some handheld cameras, but they didn't do it as shaky cam. And I've talked about how much I dislike the shaky cam stuff. So it's nice to see that, yes, there was some handheld stuff, but it wasn't implemented the way I hate.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the strengths of this movie. Right. We'll start with we'll do pros and cons, but we'll start with the strengths. And number one for me is Ampariot's performance. I mean, she carries this movie. And if you don't believe her transformation from this strung out, crazy teenager to a trained killer to someone trying to reclaim her humanity, none of the rest of this works. She has to nail this thing, and she absolutely sells it.
Yeah, that's true. I'd also say that the visual style kind of holds up. Even now, 30-something years later, it doesn't look dated the way a lot of movies that were in the early 90s look today. They look like, okay, yeah. This one, I think, stood the test of time. And I think the emotional core is stronger than people expect going into this movie. A lot of the folks show up thinking they're getting a straightforward action movie, but I think it's really more of a character study wrapped inside a thriller. So you got to pay attention to the character stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Yeah. And we mentioned the restaurant scene earlier,
yeah.
But since we're talking about the positives, we'll just call it out again. This thing is tense. It's chaotic. It does a great job of showing how her two worlds, the killer and the normal girl, can't coexist peacefully. It's just a wonderful scene.
Yeah. And I have to say that I appreciate that during her training sequences, I think they played that smart. Besson doesn't drag us through some long, boring montage of her learning to shoot guns and all the other stuff she's learning how to do. He trusts the audience to kind of fill in some of the blanks and the gaps, and he keeps the story moving. So that part I thought was well-paced and well done.
Okay, so you're saying we have another movie without a pacing problem, or are you just saying the pacing on the training sequence was good?
I'd say especially this sequence, the pacing is good. But overall, I'll make a comment about that in a moment.
Okay, well, yeah, we're going to talk about the cons in the movie. So here's a good pacing. The fact that we're pointing it out this way, you can kind of guess where we're going to go. Now, we also need to point out that just being first matters here. This movie kind of created this whole genre of the cool, complicated female assassin, and it did it before almost anyone else was doing it, and it did it well.
Yeah, it did. And I want to point out, I think one other good thing here in the movie is the way it handles quiet moments. That's a difficult thing to do in movies. This movie is not afraid to just sit with Nikita and let us watch her think or watch her be scared without a bunch of dialogue explaining everything. And since we had to read the dialogue,
There you are with your subtitles.
I was fine with that thought. Now, I thought at times, though, watching someone think got tedious.
Okay. No, I think to me it's really showing a trust in the audience.
Yeah,
They let the camera linger instead of rushing on to the next plot point.
yeah.
I don't think it lags. It lets us understand and gives us a break from the violence.
Yeah. Now, I also thought I like to pay attention to the sound because sound effects are so critical to movies. And I thought the sound design and the score worked hand in hand, and that I thought was excellent. So Eric Serra's music does a lot of emotional heavy lifting in these scenes where the characters barely speak at all.
Well,
So
I mean,
that's
this is one of those
powerful.
movies where mood actually carries just as much weight as the dialogue does.
Yeah. Now, there are some weaknesses in this movie, Tom.
Oh, really?
Well, we're going to be fair
All right.
and talk
Now,
about what doesn't work as well.
Yeah, there are a few things, and as much as I like the plot, I do think it gets a little shaky in spots.
Okay.
Some of the missions and how the agency operates doesn't hold up if you think about them too hard. If you just let it go, you're fine with it. But if you
Yeah.
think about it for a while, you might go, I'm not sure about it. But I would think most of these types of organizations, especially in movies, you're going to have that.
Yeah, like what you just said. To me, we the viewers have no real idea why any of this is happening. That's an issue I had with this, or who is really good or evil in this movie. And so I have an issue with
It's a
that.
gray line, Dan. If you're killing for the government, are you good or evil?
Yeah, no, I thought we were left in the dark a little bit too much on this stuff. I'd also say that some of the side characters don't get a lot of development. Marco, especially, is a sweet guy, but he's pretty thin as a character in general because they didn't build him up enough. Not because of him acting, because I thought he was terrific, and like I said, my favorite character in the movie, I think. So we don't know much about him beyond being kind and clueless, but I think that's because Nikita did not allow him to ask her questions about her past and so on, because she didn't want to reveal what she really was. And she never asked him. So some of this, I think, was intentional.
Yeah, now if you were Marco and you've got this woman and you've been with her for a while, like he has been, and she says, "No, I won't. You can't ask me any questions." How long would you put up with that? I mean,
He was good looking, though.
yeah, and his character does grow, and I'll leave it at that. Now,
Yeah.
at the ending, I really like the ending because it's bold. And to some viewers, I can totally get why they think it's unsatisfying. They want more closure.
Yeah,
And this is
yeah.
definitely an ending that's going to leave you wanting more.
Yeah, it's a movie that asks you to sit with some unanswered questions, and not everybody enjoys that kind of ending. Now, personally, again, Nikita, to me, was a murderer. We see that in the first 5 minutes of the movie. So I never really truly connected with her as a viewer and bought into her or even cared about her. That's how I felt the whole movie. That I couldn't buy into her and be on her side. Yeah, she changed and we saw that, but still, she's a murderer and killed innocent people. So I never connected with her as a character where I felt like, oh, I hope she doesn't get killed or oh, I didn't care. I didn't care.
Okay, well, see, for me, it was a little bit different there because I saw her growth. I mean, she starts out as a teenager and a
Yeah.
rough and tumble teenager, and they
Yeah,
kind of
murderer.
clean her up a little bit, but still let her kill people. All right, now, we mentioned pacing earlier.
Yeah.
And for me, in the middle section with Marco, yes, it's sweet, but the momentum from the first 30 minutes, they really slam on the brakes here. So they do get some of the pacing right, like we said earlier, but as the action shifts, I don't think the pacing stays quite as solid.
Okay, Tom, on the pacing, I don't think this movie has a pacing issue.
Well, good.
Instead, it is a pacing issue. The whole movie, practically,
No,
is a
you said the
pacing
training
issue.
sequence was not a pacing issue.
I said the whole movie, practically, is a
Okay.
pacing issue. I'd also say the government agency itself is pretty vague. We never really learn who they answer to or what the bigger picture goals are. It's mostly just presented as this shadowy, all powerful group. And I like to know what side I'm rooting for. And I didn't in this
You
movie.
didn't know that. Okay. All right. Well, Mission Impossible is the same type of thing.
Now we know who they are.
You don't really know who they work for.
Yeah, you kind of do.
You
They get
kind
hired.
of do, but well,
Well, these guys got hired too by the government, but
yeah, exactly.
you don't get that feel. I didn't get that feeling.
Okay. Well, for me,
Yeah.
I think it works fine for the story being told. But if you're the viewer who wants a fully built out spy world with clear rules, this movie's going to leave you wanting more.
Yeah, not more of this movie.
No,
That's not what you meant. I know.
no, I'm saying you want
Right.
more out of
Yeah,
this
yeah,
movie.
yeah. All right. And some of the violence, especially early on, can feel a little jarring or sudden for viewers who go in expecting more of a slow burn drama. It swings between quiet character moments and bursts of brutal, gory action and fast. It's bloody. It's a
Well, and
bloody.
I kind
bloody
of like
movie.
the way they do this in this movie. I mean, it starts out with a bang. It's in your face. We know this assassin business is not going to be nice. So, depending on what kind of movie you're expecting, that mix might feel exciting or a little uneven. It really depends on the viewer. And for me, knowing what type of movie this was, I got what I expected.
All right. So we know that every movie was influenced by other movies. And so let's take a look at what movies may have inspired La Femme Nikita.
The big one that critics and movie historians point out is a French movie called Le Samouraï from 1967. It was directed by Jean-Pierre Melville, and it's about a cool, quiet hitman who lives by a strict code. We've seen that before, but that movie definitely seems to have influenced La Femme Nikita. You can really feel how this influence from Le Samouraï happens here, because you see it in how the assassin characters are filmed.
Yeah.
Le Samouraï opens with a hitman played by Alain Delon, laying alone in a bare apartment, completely silent. Maybe around the 2 or 3 minute mark of that movie, he's just soaking in this cold, isolated mood. And Nikita has a similar feeling in some of her quiet apartment scenes. Not at the beginning of the movie, but when we get into the quiet apartment scenes. Especially when she's first getting settled into her new secret life. Roughly somewhere in the first 30 or 40 minutes of the movie, we get the same kind of stillness and isolation. And I think that was directly influenced from Les Samouraï.
Besson borrowed that whole moody, minimal, ice cold assassin style, I think, from Melville, and then added his own spin, though, with a female lead and a more emotional, romantic angle. So, yeah, he got it from there, but he spun it a little differently.
Yeah.
All right.
Another influence people point to is the general wave of stylish crime movies from the 60s and 70s in France. Sometimes it was called the French New Wave crime thrillers. They loved cool, detached criminals, moody city settings. It was very similar to what we see in the Paris streets and the government hallways in Nikita.
Yeah. And honestly, some folks have also connected Nikita's journey, this idea of a damaged young person being reprogrammed into a weapon for a secretive organization, to a broader science fiction and thriller concepts that were floating around in movies of that era. The whole kind of institution turns a person into a tool kind of storyline thing. And there's also this broader point here about Besson's own earlier work influencing this movie. His first couple of movies, Le Dernier Combat and Subway, both have these lonely, kind of stylish characters wandering through strange, almost empty worlds. You can feel some of that same DNA in how Nikita is shot in this movie. So yeah.
So in a way,
But that's
it's kind
natural.
It's kind of Hitchcockian because Besson was influenced by other filmmakers, but he was also just continuing ideas he'd been playing with in his earlier movies. And Hitchcock did the same type of thing. He started out and just kept building on that whole the wrong man or whatever plot, the innocent guy thrown into a weird situation. He just kept building on it, trying to make it better and trying to make it better. And that appears to be what Besson has done here.
Yeah, I'm thinking probably some of the American action movies and spy movies of the 1980s too maybe had a loose influence on this movie as well. Just in terms of the general idea of a secret government program turning an outsider into a weapon. It's a story shape that was kind of floating around in a lot of thrillers and of that decade. Even if Nikita is the one that told it best with the female lead,
That's
that was
true.
different. But
Yeah, so
the concept was around.
so Nikita's less about one single copied scene and more about pulling together a handful of traditions. The French
Yeah.
crime movies, Besson's earlier work, and general spy movie tropes,
Yeah.
mixing them together and trying to come up with something new. I also think Harry Palmer may have influenced this movie a bit, because we have to remember
Okay.
Harry got in trouble with the law, and he was pretty much blackmailed
Oh,
into becoming a spy.
yeah,
Here,
that's true, too.
Nikita's blackmailed, although in her case, refusing the job would have forced her to pay a much higher price than Harry would have to deal with.
Yeah. All right. Now, let's see if La Femme Nikita influenced anything that came after it. So we'll flip this
Okay.
whole thing around.
Yeah,
What do you
well,
think?
the first one's easy. It got remade twice. In 1991, there was a Hong Kong version called Black Cat. Then 93, we got Point of No Return, starring Bridget Fonda. And after that came the TV series La Femme Nikita, which ran on the USA network for 5 seasons.
5
And
seasons.
that show
Pretty
kept
long.
a lot of the same characters and ideas and just stretched it out over dozens of episodes.
Yeah. Well,
There was even a second TV reboot years later, just called Nikita on the CW network, which ran for 4 seasons on its own. So this
Yeah.
thing, it's influenced the remakes of itself multiple times.
yeah, you're running 4 or 5 seasons in these different shows. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. So this one movie basically spawned its own little universe of remakes and shows, which is, hey, it says something.
Well, yeah, and beyond the remakes, its fingerprints are all over action movies with female leads that came after it. People
That's
point
true.
to shows like Alias, movies like Kill Bill that carry the same torch of a stylish, deadly woman who's also very emotionally complicated.
And more recently, Atomic Blonde and Besson's own later movie, Anna, both echo Nikita's pretty directly, I think. And the same mix of glamour and brutal violence in one character. So, yeah, it probably did
Yeah.
influence others.
Oh yeah, I see a lot of Nikita and Anna. There's also that famous restaurant scene where she has to fight her way out and she's surrounded by armed guys. The close, chaotic, close quarters fighting in a small space became a template to what you see repeated in a ton of action movies. It totally made me think about that scene in The Bourne Identity where they're in that apartment or hotel room or whatever that was, and that guy jumps out the window. Right? It's similar kind of feel for me there.
Yeah, and you see it in a lot of movies after that, too, even some of the Bond movies, too. And interestingly, I think modern action directors, including the people behind the John Wick movies, have talked about being influenced by Besson's style from this era. So you actually have that as a fact. That combination of cool visuals and with brutal close-up fight choreography definitely influenced them as well.
Yeah, so this one movie, even though it
Yeah.
wasn't a giant blockbuster here in the U.S., it quietly shaped a huge chunk of the action genre for the next 30 years.
Yeah. And you can see the thematic echoes in his other movies too, like The Fifth Element and later on, like we said, this recurring idea of unlikely women being turned into a powerful, dangerous figure by forces bigger than her.
Now, one other thing in terms of the influence, I said that I thought a lot of this movie influenced Red Sparrow, but there was a huge difference between Red Sparrow and this movie in that in Red Sparrow, sex was a huge part of that movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a huge part at all of Nikita.
No. All right, last topic. This one's kind of a fun bit of trivia. We sometimes find movies have fun with names. Where does the name Nikita even come from?
Well, this one surprised me at first because
Yeah.
Nikita is actually a traditionally common Russian male first name. I mean,
Yeah.
you think about Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev,
Right.
definitely a male, and
Yeah.
Nikita here is definitely a female.
Yeah. So it's a little unusual that Besson gave that name to a French woman. And apparently, part of the reason comes from pop music. Yeah. There was a hit
Okay.
song called Nikita by Elton John, released back in 1985, just a few years before this movie came out. And even in the movie, when asked about her name, she says it is from a song.
Yeah,
You
so
remember that?
yeah, the movie might actually be named after the song, and that song's music video has a female playing the part of Nikita. When you
Go
listen to
figure.
the words, it's hard to tell if Nikita's a male or a female,
Yeah.
but in the video, it's a female. So
Yeah.
a lot of the commentary about the song was that the video changed her to a woman. So that's where the change happened.
Yeah, it had to be part of the inspiration here, and the name was floating around in pop culture at the time. So, hey, thanks to that song. There you go. Before we wrap up, let's do a quick round of fun facts. We gotta have some fun with this movie. Come on. Some extra stuff.
It's hard
we
to
found.
have fun with a movie like this.
Yeah, some extra stuff we found that seems interesting. All right, for the first one, the movie was shot mostly around Paris, and the government training facility that you see in the movie was actually filmed in a real building that used to be a hospital.
Well, that
So-
explains why it has this cold clinical feeling. I
It
mean, it makes
does.
sense that it was a hospital at some point with the way they use it and the feeling you got from it.
Yeah, you're right. That's right. Now, the second fact is Anne Perelot said in interviews afterward she had a hard time shedding the character once filming wrapped up. Playing someone that intense for so long actually followed her home a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad, honestly.
Yeah,
It's a
man.
very heavy role to have to try to carry around, and it's not that uncommon for actors that get into their roles. Like
Yeah.
Jim Carrey, he shot that movie Man on the Moon about Andy Kaufman, and he had a huge time extricating Andy Kaufman from Jim Carrey, the person. When that
Wow.
movie was done, he really had a hard time making that split. So, Pario talking about this here makes kind of sense to me.
Yeah. And the third fact was when Anne Perelot was asked years later about doing a sequel, she actually said, no thanks. She felt like the story was already complete and didn't want to revisit it to cash in.
Okay, you got to give her some respect there.
Yeah,
Right? She's leaving a good thing alone and is not just going for the payday.
Yeah. And lastly, this movie was made on a fairly modest budget for its time, somewhere around $5 or $6 million, which is pretty small compared to big Hollywood action movies. Now, even back in 1990, that was a small number. Remember, Dr. No had a $1 million budget in 1962.
$1
And this-
million.
$1 million. And this only had $5 or $6 million in 1990. That's
Yeah,
pretty
really.
small.
Well, and if you do the math here of taking $1 million budget for Dr. No, put in $1990, that means it had about a $4.8 million adjusted dollars there. So Nikita was only made for slightly more than what Dr. No was made for. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. All right. Let's wrap this up. I think that pretty much covers all of what we want to talk about with La Femme Nikita from 1990, directed by Luc Besson and starring Anne Perelot. Now, all right.
This is a movie that's stylish. It's a little messy in spots, but honestly, I still think it holds up as one of the most important action movies of its decade. I think it's worth a watch, even just for the significance in how it created this genre of movies.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's worth checking out, especially if you're a fan of any of the movies or shows that we mentioned today that it inspired. I'm not giving it 3.5 stars like Roger Ebert. I thought the movie was too long, and it itself was a pacing problem. So,
And if you have seen it, go watch that restaurant scene again. I just think that's just worth it. You talk about a brick wall, running into a brick wall. It's a theme in this movie.
that's the best.
That scene nails it.
That's the best scene in the movie. All right, that's our show for today. Thanks for listening to Cracking the Code of Spy Movies. I'm Dan.
And I'm Tom.
And please like this episode and subscribe to our show. Thanks for listening and spending part of your day with us. And remember, in espionage, trust no one except us.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.